Sarah Wuebbolt, welcome to Life After Impact, the Concussion Recovery Podcast. I'm so happy to have you on today. How are you?
Great, how are you?
I am good. It's nice and sunny and warm here in Wisconsin, so I'm enjoying a bit of a reprieve from the sub-zero temperatures.
It's a lot better than where it is in Toronto. We are still covered in snow and
Ah,
negative like 15 degrees. It's not fun.
yeah. I was in Toronto last fall for the first time ever. I was teaching a small group training, and I really liked it there. It's a great city.
Yeah, though I love my home, but like at the same time, I winters here are absolutely brutal. And just I'm not a snow person or a winter person to be at all. So
Right. When you did do indoor sports, volleyball, which is how you got your first concussion. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show was to give a voice to somebody yourself who, when they were a teenager, had a series of concussions and still had to navigate going to school and dealing with teachers who maybe didn't always understand very well what you were experiencing or sometimes questioned it. And so, can you talk a little bit about kind of when this all started, your background, and kind of where you are today compared to when you had that initial concussion?
well, when I had my initial concussion, I was back in grade 5, and that was in 2020. The education even surrounding brain injuries was very different. Back then, it was still the standard routine of rest, stay in a dark room, like, don't do anything, you can't read a book, you can't look at screens, which made that recovery very difficult. When I had my initial concussion, it was just before COVID, so I was going through everything, was having normal year, and then I served out volleyball, it came down, hit the ceiling, came down, hit my head, and that recovery, when I first met my doctors, they didn't really give me a lot of guidance as to even what a concussion was to begin with. I had just learned that you could get a brain injury and then that could derail your entire life. And my doctors weren't really giving me a lot of anything outside of, oh, you should be fine in 2 weeks and it'll just be a couple of headaches, which in reality it wasn't. It stretched on for 6 weeks, and the mental side of things, the emotional toll was a lot more hard on me compared to the actual symptoms due to the fact that the recommendation at that time was just to stay in a dark room, not do anything, no form of connection. I did settle into a state of depression, which was difficult for me to navigate because you're missing also a very formative part in your life where you're still learning how to make those connections with other people and interact with others on a day-to-day basis. That now wasn't able to partake in any of that, and I was taken away from my normal life.
Yeah, and then with that happening right before the pandemic, did your school go into a distance learning for a period of time there where you were forced to be on screens, like while you were dealing with the concussion symptoms?
Luckily, my injury came in January of 2020, and it was done about midway through February. I was signed off and said I was no longer concussed. So by the time we went into lockdown during March, I didn't have my injury anymore. And even when I was back at school after like spending my time recovering at home, I still wasn't able to fully participate in things like sports, normal assignments, just class time, and even like recess. It's like the little things that going into the pandemic and lockdown for the rest of grade 5 and then grade 6 being some weird hybrid learning, it was difficult because I didn't have that time to be just a kid before the pandemic for that month, for those 2-ish months, and then now we're in the pandemic and no one has that communication.
And I know a lot of times the physical symptoms like headaches, neck pain, dizziness, those are the things that get focused on more so than maybe some of the cognitive symptoms that are a little bit harder, more subtle to kind of track and measure, unless you're seeing people who specialize in that. In hindsight, when you say that it took 6 weeks, do you feel like there were still some residual, either kind of cognitive, attention, focusing type issues that persisted or emotional symptoms that persisted that maybe you weren't really linking to the concussion at that time?
Yeah, looking back now, there definitely would have been a lot of things I would have done differently during my recovery, and B, just, like, having a after my 2nd and 3rd concussion, I started to get a better grasp of my symptoms and understanding what my body was going through, that even looking back now, I think some of those symptoms, because I was still dealing with your normal headaches and sometimes dizziness, but trying if going back now, I would have probably tried to focus more on introducing myself earlier to things like brighter lights and louder noises as opposed to trying to restrict myself entirely from them. Because even though it is important to, like, when you have a migraine, and especially if you there are been many times even now living with post-concussion syndrome that I've had a migraine. I don't wanna deal with the noise, the sound, but I still put on, like, my sunglasses. I'll take the pain med just so I can get through my day. But back then, early on in the recovery, I wish I just instead of using the sunglasses and the pain meds, I even at small doses, force myself to be into those louder and brighter light situations because I find that those symptoms, I think that the recovery might have almost been faster because I spent less time trying to recover from the new protections I'd built around myself, and instead I would have been spending more time just trying to actively recover. And then with the emotional side of things, looking at just maintaining your mental health after a brain injury and the tunnels that you can go into when it's just you and you have no one else to connect with. I think I probably would have maybe really put more words to what I was going through. And it's difficult at that time to advocate for yourself, especially like when you're 11 years old trying to talk to adults about what you're going through. I wish I just communicated what I was feeling better, even with my own parents, being able to put more of a voice and just words to the feelings that I was experiencing inside my body, and as opposed to bottling them all up and forcing myself to deal with that state of depression by myself, I think it would have made it a lot easier.
And it's hard when you don't have the vocabulary for being able to describe some of the neurological type symptoms in a way that, is medically accurate, I guess is the word I'm trying to go for. But when you're 11, like you don't have that vocabulary. And so I could imagine it would be very difficult to try to put words to your experience. What was the timeline between your first, second, and third concussions?
So my first one was in January 2020, my second one, which was grade 5, that November 2022, grade 8, and then December 2023, so grade 9.
Okay. What were some of the symptoms that really made school difficult and kind of interrupted that whole process of education and learning and
So the one in grade 8, that one, I feel like it did take a lot longer than the standard 2 weeks, which I think it's amazing for the people that are able to recover in 2 weeks, but there are so many people that are not able to, and I just one thing that I think I would wish for, like, the healthcare system is just to better share the fact that that timeline is very much it is very open. It could take you 3 days, and you'll be fine the next weekend to go to school and be at a party or whatever, or it can take you months and years, and you'll still be feeling those symptoms. But my second concussion, I had your typical, I guess, headache, light sensitivity. After my second concussion, I think one of the odder symptoms that I wouldn't really have expected was now when I like, even to this day, I find that when I'm having a conversation, especially one that involves me having to do a lot of thought putting a lot of thought into my responses and having information coming at me and then me having to formulate a response and send the information back. I find it incredibly difficult to be able to hold eye contact during those conversations, which honestly makes it a lot very difficult for the person that I'm conversing with. Because when you're not really holding eye contact with someone, the other person believes that you're not listening to them. I can't really explain it, but it takes that concentration, and then now I'm also asking my brain to be able to, like, think on its feet and formulate that response to whatever the question that's being posed at me or whatever that person is saying, which I found has been a lot more difficult since that concussion. And even when I was dealing with it during that concussion, it would always almost bring up symptoms for me, which is something I didn't expect.
And what kinds of therapies have you done kind of over the course of the last couple of years?
I've done lots of physiotherapy trying to help with the dizziness and vestibular functions, and yeah, I did counseling a lot too, which was very helpful to kind of work through some of the residual, not symptoms, but just some of like the grudges I was almost holding against myself and others. Oh, throughout all the recoveries and times that I found people have doubted me, and I just haven't really like I didn't feel comfortable maybe to share, or I couldn't put the words to what I wanted to share. Whole working through that and other therapies. I also one of the things, like, stuff in terms of just doing it at my house, I found meditation to be very helpful, especially recently. I'd like having those few moments a day just to, like, reconnect with myself and focus on my breath, and also walking a lot. One of the things that I found, especially with second concussion, that I didn't expect to really work was just being able to go outside and feel, like, really cold wind on my face, just really it decompressed my nervous system and just got, like, rid of headaches and dizziness very quickly, and that's something I still do today when I have symptoms come up, especially if I'm at school. Like, I have a learning plan that I made sure allowed me to be able to leave class and go for these walks outside when I need to, or even just, like, sit out in the quad at our school and feel the cool air on my face.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that is great that you've figured out these tools that are free and easily accessible that really make a difference for you in the moment at such a young age. To be able to know that you have access to that and can use it effectively is amazing. Was there, like, one particular moment in time that stood out to you or still kind of sticks in your mind where you were experiencing either a teacher or someone that just wasn't taking you seriously in terms of your symptoms or your need to kind of do things differently?
Yeah, when I had my second concussion, at that point in time, you're still mandated to take your normal gym class at my school. I had emailed my teacher ahead of time, just trying to explain, like, I have an injury now, and we were in our dance unit, which required a lot of fast spinning movements to, like, choreograph a dance and then perform it for the class. So I'd emailed her, explained the fact that I had concussion, provided the medical documentation, and asked for an alternate assessment, so I'd still be able to get my mark. I just obviously couldn't do, like, a full gym class. And she didn't respond to those emails. When I tried to talk to her again about it in person, her response to me was that she's seen other kids fake their injuries before to get out of things like gym class, and because I didn't want to participate, so therefore I must have been faking it too, which
Frustrating.
I like, yeah, it's frustrating, and then also it's just like when you're 14 and someone's telling you that, especially a teacher, there's no there's no easy way to respond to that happening and someone telling that to you. There's no one response that even popped into my head in that moment. I had just been trying to advocate for myself and explain my injury and what I was going through, and being met with someone telling me I'm faking it, especially someone that I basically looked up to and saw as an authority figure that was trustworthy and was, like, hoping it was trying to work in my best interest. and then being told you're faking it, it was difficult, and after that moment, I still persevered. Immediately after, it was very difficult for me to do anything in the moment, and so I kinda shut down and I accepted what she said, assuming that I was faking it, and I went back and participated in the rest of that class, even though it aggravated symptoms. But later that evening and then the following weeks and days that came, I started emailing and I looped in, my guidance counselor, my school health team, other like, the school physiotherapist, and the heads of my grade, and I was, fortunately able to finally fight for the accommodation that I deserved and being able to take an alternate assessment and being able to go and use our gym like, some of our gym class time and our lunches to go and get the mandated physiotherapy that I needed to be able to recover and actually get back to a gym class.
Um, yeah, that's really tough. And going back to what you said earlier about it, when you read the research, they're like, oh, well, 30% of people may, go on to have lingering symptoms. And yet it does seem like so often the world only pays attention to the 70% that are supposedly supposed to just miraculously be back to normal in 14 days. And it's like, that's just not how the world works. And we can't, just because 70% heals in 14 days doesn't mean we get to ignore the 30% and act like they don't exist. And I feel like that's so many people's experience. And it is very frustrating. There was a big study that came out not that long ago that was looking at concussions in college students. And they were finding that even that 14-day window is not very realistic, and that in many, many cases, the majority of people need at least 30 days. And that, again, there's always still that cohort of people that are going to take much longer than 30 days. But so even just this idea that you get a concussion or brain injury and you're totally fine in 14 days, that's just not a lot of people's experience.
Even, like, the amount of my friends that have also had concussions, whether it be from sports or something else, and, like, especially for me, seeing them being able to move through, because in Canada, we have this, like, mandated stages of concussion recovery plan, and I also I don't think that plan is at all indicative of what actual recovery looks like just saying it for 24 hours, you should just be walking, and then if you get no symptoms, you can go to the next stage of the recovery plan until you get back, like, all the way into sports and all the way to school. Some people move through that so fast, and it's just, like, checking off boxes for them, but then when I found myself falling into a rabbit hole where I would compare my recovery to their recoveries, which kinda went back into the mental toll and the emotional toll, the symptoms that we were talking about earlier. It was difficult because you see all these people recovering super fast, and it's like, "Why can't I do the same? I just wanna get back to my normal life." And then that also makes it makes it a lot more difficult for other people to understand you because, like you said, the world doesn't work that way. We're just focusing on these people that can recover in 2 weeks, and it's so publicly talked about that you can, "Oh, recover in 2 weeks," or, like, "You should be fine, just like, if you get symptoms, you can take a little bit longer, but I doubt you will, like, you're probably only gonna get a headache, just rest." You're just leaving out this whole other group of people who now is still dealing with recovery and making it so much harder for them to be able to explain their symptoms because now everyone has these preconceptions that, oh, it's just a concussion, you know? You probably need some rest. It is obviously your brain. It's not great, but I feel like you'll definitely be fine. Like, no, we're not fine.
Yeah. And how did this experience shape how you look at your future in terms of your interest in, education and career?
Well, especially after my second one and my third one, and being told that I was faking it, it really put it into perspective for me that lots of doctors and other adults in the world will say that same thing to other kids like me, and those kids might not be able to advocate for themselves. So it kinda changed how I wanna think about my future, and now I know I wanna definitely become a doctor that is there for their patients, and whether it be in the field of neurology or something else, just knowing that I can be the voice, especially for teenagers and other kids, that helping them work through these things with adults that don't believe them, other people that don't believe them, being a doctor who understands what they're going through and is willing, ready to be there and support them through it.
That's wonderful. And I know that you have an Instagram account where you are trying to also right now in this moment still, get good information out there to other people and to not only share your story, but let other people know that they're not alone. What's that experience been like? Have you gotten a lot of feedback?
Yeah, so at first it was a little bit nerve-wracking. It was like, "What am I doing? Just sharing this all on social media? Does anyone actually wanna know about this?" Like, especially in the past year, it's probably one of my favorite things about my life, having that Instagram account. It's just, like, this other community that I've found that understands what I'm going through, and I understand what they're going through, and even if it not just outside of all the posts I make, trying to educate others and share my experience, getting, like, DMs from people saying that this resonated with me, and then just going back and forth and sharing our experiences, and it's so interesting because 'cause I've met so many people and had the opportunity to speak to so many people that have had completely different, like, their injuries have been so different than mine, their recoveries have been so different. It's given me such a different perspective on it that I, like, had my own perspective in trying to share my own experience from the things I've gone through, but now I see so many other people that have gone through so much harder things and come out, like, as obviously not unscathed, but they're still there, they're stronger than ever, that it also is a bit of an inspiration for me to keep going, especially when I find that times get tough and it's like I just would have wished that this had never happened to me, but in reality, like, as much as there's so many times that I would just say, like, I wish I never served that volleyball, I wish I never, like, went skiing and got that other concussion or had a door slam into my face, like, even though I have those days, it just reminds me that, you know what, this sucks, but I kinda have to deal with it. There's no changing that, I can't go back and change the past. I can just take what's been given to me and connect with others in that way.
And where are you symptom-wise, and are there things that are still very much, daily struggles or less frequent struggles?
I'd say less frequent. I still get like, when I get symptoms, they're pretty bad, and I'll still have days where I have the really bad headaches, the bad migraines, but I've been able to get a lot back to my new normal version of life. I've been able to become what a normal teenager should be,
Mhm.
having fun, hanging out with friends, doing sports, academics, all of that. There are days where I'll still get symptoms, and it is still completely frustrating seeing that, like, I've made all this good progress, like, whether it be weeks and I'm just only getting, like, minor headaches, and then you have this day where it's just, like, it's a setback, but at the same time, I've been trying to like, reframe that way of viewing it, just it's a little bump in the road, it's a little hill that I have to get over that then I can continue growing from. So, symptoms, when they're there, are not great.
Do you feel like stress is a huge factor? Like, when you look at the days when you do have, a really bad headache or migraine, can you kinda trace that back to different things about how your week went or sleep or stress or diet?
Yeah, a lot of times I can trace it back to sleep. My Sleep schedule, row every pretty much every morning, so I am going to bed at 8:30 and waking up at 4:30, which is crazy to a lot of people, but, um, there are times where I find myself I've had a week where I'm just doing, like, whether it be a lot of studying or something else, and I don't have the chance to get what my 8 hours of sleep a night, even if it's between 7 and 8, that's kind of what I found to be my sweet spot. I can a lot of times trace symptoms back to that, waking up with headaches, and, like, I know that this isn't the amount of sleep that I need.
Yeah. When I was in college at the University of Minnesota, my friend had asked if I wanted to drop in and train with her rowing team, and, of course, the women's team had to train at 4:30 in the morning on the river, and so I didn't know that at first, and I was like, "Oh, I'd love to come and do a practice with you guys," and she's like, "Great, it's at 4:30 AM," and I'm like, "Great, I changed my mind." Like, "I don't think so."
Yeah, the early mornings definitely took adjustment. I think my parents hate it a lot more than I do, but
Are you a junior now?
yes.
Okay,
Junior.
okay. Are you looking at colleges? Or not yet?
Yeah, see, my perspective on my future plans is I know I'm gonna apply to places, like, it's not like I'm not gonna do that. I'll apply to the US, Canada, UK, and then, you know what? I'll get my rejections, I'll get my wait list, I'll get my acceptances, and then I'm gonna figure out where I'll
Mhm.
end up.
Sure,
I
sure.
I know there's lots of people my age that have everything figured out, and they're like, "I know this is my top school, and this can be my backup, and I'm gonna ED here, EA there." I'm like, "I don't."
Mhm.
I'll see. I know I wanna go into medicine, but wherever I end up,
Yeah, well, you can do
probably
that in lots of places. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
in Canada, we have this thing called Rowan's Law. It was created because of this person named, Rowan Stringer, who she was a football player, she got a concussion and then didn't really do anything about it, had the headache, and then went back, played another game, got a couple more it was I don't know remember how many more concussions it was in a really short period of time, and unfortunately, she ended up dying from that because she had the internal bleeding. And from that, a lot of new legislation came out regarding education. Even like for me, at the start of our school year, we always kind of a talk about concussions. Like if you see something, you have to report it. Talk to your sports coach, your teacher, or whatever, a trusted adult. But just doing that like once at the start of the year for 30 minutes is not enough at all. If I would, if I had like my way, I would mandate a new education program so situations like this didn't happen anymore.
Mm. Yeah. Well, and I know at least in the United States, a lot of high schools make it mandatory in certain sports for people to do a baseline concussion test before the season starts. But at the junior high level, so kids that are in like sixth, seventh, eighth grade, they don't have to do that. And there's still concussions happening there. And then you don't really have any baseline data to compare them to as far as balance and memory and things like that. And so there's still a lot of kids that kind of fall through the cracks in that regard. And then I hear too sometimes that some of these baseline tests at the beginning of the season might just be a simple pen and paper test and so they aren't super robust in their ability to even detect, the aftermath of a concussion. So I do think the more concussion informed teachers and athletic coaches can be, the better, and especially in the sports, obviously with football and rugby and lacrosse and hockey, they're very much aware of it, but then there's a lot of other sports like volleyball, or dance or cheerleading where concussions are very common, and yet they're just not there's no athletic trainers sitting by the sidelines at a volleyball game typically, like there is in a football game, right? And so there's just a lot of, I think girls sports and certain types of sports where they just don't have that level of, awareness or screening that happens with other sports.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that also amounts to the fact that concussions also can happen in so many different ways. Like, obviously, if you're playing a heavy contact sport, you see like someone get pummeled in the head, like chances are they have a concussion. But like What about all the times when someone just is, like, going about their day, slips on a bunch of ice, and, like, falls on their butt? Now then that person probably doesn't even know that, "Oh, I can get a brain injury from that." Even I found that, especially when it came to my 2nd and especially my 3rd concussion, I kinda got it, and I was skiing, I hit a piece of ice, I flipped, and I landed on my head, and I kinda knew in the moment, I was like, "I don't feel right, this feels like I have a concussion." But that took me 3 recoveries to get to that point. Like, I had to go through all the symptoms and dealing with that 2 other times before I could be in the moment. I'm like, "Yeah, I should not be on this hill anymore right now. I'd probably have another concussion." For the people that come into this injury their first time and they don't even know what their own symptoms are, because why would you? It's not like we
Mhm.
get taught in school, "Okay, so you'll have a concussion if your head feels like this." Like, it there just needs to be more education, period, and just more information shared.
Yeah, my friend and I wrote a children's book, that's was about concussions to have an educational tool, and then we just kinda got stuck on actually finding an illustrator for the book. So, we're just kinda sitting on this idea. We've got the book, we've got
Oh, that's
the
amazing.
actual text, and then every time I think about it, I'm like, "Man, we really need to get
Yes.
that moving forward," and then, of course, I get distracted by all the other stuff. So, maybe someday we'll publish our children's book about head injuries. Because yeah, I do think that we need more tools so that even kids that are 8 years old can be like, "Oh, my mom read me this book, and I remember that it was important to pay attention to these symptoms, and so if my friend, crashes on their bike and all of a sudden they're throwing up or they're dizzy and they can't walk
Yeah.
straight, I know what to do." Someday we'll make that happen.
No, I think that'd be amazing. Like, the earlier we can educate people about brain injuries, I think, the more
Exactly.
important it is.
I I have distinct memories of being in kindergarten and learning not to turn the hairdryer on while standing in the bathtub full of water, right? It's like those safety lessons that you learn in kindergarten, well, they stick with you for a reason because 'cause they're gonna save your life. So maybe we just slide some concussion education in there as well over the
No.
years. Yeah. It's been great to have you on the show, and I look forward to checking out your Instagram page, and I'd love to stay in touch and just share some resources.
Yes, no, definitely. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Absolutely.